What's up, everybody? Welcome to Three Wide in the Middle, your home for all things racing, when me and Keith can actually make it here to the podcast. Keith, what's up, my man?
What's up, man? It feels like it's been a freaking month.
Yeah, dude, it's been a while, man. It's been a while. So, apologies to everybody last week. Keith and I, we didn't get the pod in. So last week I can't remember what day it was. We didn't do it, but we were going to be scheduled for Thursday or Friday, or usually those are one of the 2 days that we're going to do it. It's been more Fridays lately just because of what's been going on with our work schedules. But last week I got a call that I can't remember if it was on Wednesday or what day it was, but I got a call that my father was killed in an accident. So we didn't do the pod last week. Apologies about that. But we're back this week, and yeah, ready to dive into it. To be honest, last week, if there was a week to not do the pod, it was last week. There wasn't much to talk about. Martinsville sucked. I'm going to cover that. Yeah, I'm going to cover that here in just a second, because there was a lot of people echoing what I had talked about literally the week before. And if you did not see the video clip that we had on our YouTube channel, I'm going to play just a small portion of it for you. But if you have not seen that clip, you can go watch it on our YouTube channel. It's from the show that I did after Richmond. My thing, don't take a date away from Richmond, because it's not the track. It's not the track, man. We just saw this at Bristol. Give them a better freaking tire. Why is this so hard to understand? I don't get it. How hard is this? All of the issues that we have had, that we have talked about, that's why we talk so much about horsepower. Give us more horsepower. You know why we need more horsepower? We need more horsepower so we could spin these damn tires. Now, here's the thing. Guess what? NASCAR, you don't need more horsepower if you have a tire that wears out. How is it that I know this and NASCAR doesn't? I'm nobody. I was a local dirt track mechanic, right? Regional mechanic at best, right? Setting up sprint cars and midgets. Never worked on a NASCAR. I've never been in the pits. I should know nothing. So why is it that I can figure this out, but Goodyear and NASCAR can't? What is the problem? So that was me basically going off about all the people coming out after Richmond saying, hey, pull a date from it. Richmond sucks. And I basically lost my shit and went on a rant and talked about it's not the track, it's the tire. We saw the same thing at Martinsville. Everybody after this last week's race, Texas, Texas is back, right? You would have thought that was the greatest race that we had ever seen at Texas after last week. Chaos does not mean exciting. This is the thing that drives me nuts. Where just because there was, Keith, how many cautions were there? 15? 14? I mean, it was an insane amount of cautions.
A lot,
yeah. Just because there's a lot of cautions, it doesn't mean it's an exciting race. That doesn't make it exciting, right? It does, or I should say, it doesn't make it good. There's a difference between good racing and action or drama, okay? You can go onto Netflix and Hulu right now, and you can find an endless supply of action movies. It does not mean that they are good movies, okay? There's a huge difference. The same thing in racing. Because you have chaos, because you have cautions and wrecks and a bunch of action, it doesn't make it a good race. This is the thing that I've been hammering on for a very long time now. The racing in this car sucks. Now, Texas is unique because obviously the 1.5 mile racing is spectacular. Fortunately, we've got some tracks coming up where we're finally going to get to see some decent racing. We got Dover. After this week, we got Talladega, which is probably going to be another snooze fest for the first 170 laps. But then we've got Dover, which they call a short track now, which is horseshit. It's not a short track. It's 1 mile, and it's high banked. It's fast, but it's decent racing usually. Then we've got Kansas, which has always been really good racing. After that, I think we've got Darlington, then we've got Charlotte. So we've got some really good racing coming up. And this car does great at the 1.5 miles. Everywhere else, it basically sucks. And NASCAR and Goodyear and the drivers finally met. NASCAR's finally like, look, we're done tinkering with the aero, which thank God, because that shit has not done anything on the short tracks. And really, it's on Goodyear. It's on Goodyear. Goodyear's got to fix the tire problem. They've got to fix a tire problem. This last week, we could see at Texas, the right side tires were actually laying rubber. The left side tires, not so much. They've got to get this under control, and they need to do it fast. I don't know how long it takes to produce tires, but they need to get on this quickly, because right now, I am watching the NASCAR races literally just to stay up to date with it and for this podcast. And I don't make money from this podcast. I do this for fun. And I just, I want to stay up to date with NASCAR. But I'm not really watching NASCAR because I'm dying to see what happens. That's the truth. Now, on the other hand, when I want to see good racing, I watch dirt racing right now, because that is good racing. If you want to know the difference between like good racing and not good racing, watch a NASCAR race and then go watch one of the many sprint car races we had over the last weekend. Whether it was the Outlaws at I-55, whether it was High Limit at the 3 different tracks that they went to, Texas, RPM, Red Dirt, those are good races. And the thing with dirt racing right now, dirt racing to me is so much more nimble. I don't know why we don't see these types of changes in NASCAR. I don't know why we can't see it happen with NASCAR, but we can see it happen with dirt racing, right? Dirt came out, Roll of Outlaws and High Limit. They're like, hey, look, man, we think the wicker bill is causing, aero problems with the racing. We're going to reduce it down to a 1-inch wicker bill. Has it had the effect that they wanted? Not really. Teams have kind of just been like, okay, well, we don't have 2-inch wicker bill. We'll just increase the wing angle, which basically does the same thing. Still dirties up the air. You're never going to get, with wing sprint cars, you're never going to get away from that now. It's the same thing with the cup cars. Once they started coil binding the cars years ago and they started slamming those things and sealing them on the ground, you're never getting away from it now. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. I don't care what NASCAR does. You will never get away from the aero problem. You're just not going to get away from it. It's always going to be there. You can reduce it. You can try to minimize the problem that the aero issues, the aero push and the drag and all that stuff like that. You could try to reduce it, but you're never going to get rid of it, right? We saw Formula One, the, most expensive, most high-tech racing in the world. They created a whole new car, did all these new things, right, to improve racing and the product on the track. No, less dirty air, more, drivers being able to follow closely and get up there and catch a slipstream and pass. And we got drag reduction system and all these different things. And, the racing's been better, but what do we see? We still see what we saw through my, young life when I was growing up. We see one team with one driver kicking the shit out of everybody else in the field. And, if you look in the pack, the racing is better, but it's always been that way because those cars are always a little bit closer. Basically the same thing. Improved some, but overall it's the same product. And that's what we're seeing with NASCAR right now. They tinker, they try this, they do this. It takes them forever to make a decision. The decision that they make it like a scared child, afraid that if something happens, they're going to be chastised. Like, that's how Goodyear acts if they bring a softer tire that deteriorates. They act like they're going to get punished if something goes wrong. Folks, I said this a couple weeks ago when I went on my rant after Richmond. I'll sign the waiver. I'll check the box. I'll fill out the survey, the form, whatever it is. If Goodyear has another Indy incident, I won't complain about it, because right now the racing sucks so bad. I would much rather them take some swings and try to do something, because pretty much we've got, maybe out of the 37 races they have, there's maybe a dozen of them that are good races. I don't care what Jeff Gluck's poll says. This last week that Texas got a good score. Whatever. Cautions don't equal. Those are the same people who will say Talladega is a good race if there's a bunch of cautions in the big one. Whatever. You can have good racing without chaos and bullshit. And right now, that's really what seems to be the thing defining it. Was the racing at Texas better than it has been? Yes, absolutely. There was some, chances to pass. The track did start to finally widen out. I don't know if that was the track as much as the right side tires falling off. I think there was actual tire fall off, although it wasn't much. It did seem to be there. They did start using more of the track later in the race. I cannot believe that still after, a decade, that PJ1 is still on the track. Get that shit off there. I cannot believe there's not a way to clean that off. So, if they could do a couple things to Texas and make it better, right? I don't, to me, they should have, the reconfig sucked. It was horrible. We're not going to change, I say we, but SMI is not going to change that. They're not going to go back to what it was. It's not going to happen. They're not going to spend the money. Great. What do they have now? How can they improve it? Knock those bumps down in 3 and 4 so those guys can get out there and actually run wider than a groove and a half off the bottom, and then get that PJ1, that whatever that crap is you got all over turns 1 and 2, get that shit off. Find some kind of acid or something. There's got to be something out there that can clean that off. There's got to be. Get that crap cleaned off. And, Goodyear, bring a tire, like I said before, after Richmond. It's like Goodyear went and found, Wakanda's stash of vibranium, and they're building their freaking tires out of it. It's just maddening. So bring a tire that falls off, and we might be able to see this racing improve, because you're not going to fix the car. And this is the thing. You're not going to fix the car. The car is what it is. NASCAR went out and they tried to be what they're not. And this is the thing that frustrates me the most. NASCAR tried to be what they're not. I understand keeping up with the times. I do. I really do. I don't fault them on that. I fault them on trying to be what they're not. They went way too far. Way too far with this. You essentially created a GT3 car. You got a Australian supercar out there running at NASCAR tracks, and that's not what those cars are for. That's just not. They're not oval cars. And we can sit there and we can say, oh, well, it was to reduce costs. Every single owner that talks has said that costs have not gone down. They've only gotten more expensive. Nothing is built in-house anymore. These teams couldn't save money if they wanted to. And that's what made NASCAR what it was. NASCAR was great because the racing that you got was amazing, and you knew that the people that were there on the track had built the car themselves. Now it is no different than what my son does when he gets a brand new 1,000-piece, Lego set from the store. It's just putting it together with a booklet of instructions. And unfortunately, that has given us what we have. And unless they do something drastic here with these tires and with these short tracks, which we've beat to death, I'm afraid that all we're going to have to look forward to each season moving forward is the 1.5 miles. And that is really sad and depressing from my point of view. All right, Keith. Now that we got that depressing crap out the way, let's talk about some fun racing. So, not a lot going on in the Cup world. I didn't even get any hit or miss questions prepared today because I figured I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. Have you been following the RTA NASCAR charter agreement? What's going on with that? Have you followed that?
Not as much as I probably should. I know they say they're close on a deal, but there's a bunch of doubts surrounding if a deal even gets done and what the deal even looks like.
Yeah, so the issue that it, now for those of you who, because I've actually had a couple of people who have sent me questions about this. They weren't like asked three white emails. They just messaged me and whether in like the Discord, hey, I listened to the pod. Can you explain the charter thing more? And because I know there's a lot of people out there that have talked about it. Essentially, the easiest way to look at it is to just think of them as like sports franchises. That's kind of the easiest way to look at it. It'll give you a reference in terms of what and how to think about it. So if you look at the New York Yankees, right? We'll use the Yankees, even though baseball is not popular. Everybody knows who the New York Yankees are, or the LA Lakers in basketball. That's a sports franchise. If you own that team, you've got a seat at the table, period. Now, those sports, baseball, football, basketball, even when we get into soccer and things like that, they're different than NASCAR because the commissioner, right, the head, so in the NFL, it's Roger Goodell, he works for the owners. Okay, the owners essentially hire Roger Goodell to run the league. That's what they do. All right, that's what Goodell does. Goodell is their boss while he also answers to them. It's a really unique situation. All right. NASCAR is different in that sense. Okay, because NASCAR is owned by the France family. I mean, that's basically it, they're the ones that run it. The teams don't own NASCAR and then hire Jim France to run it. That's not the way that it is. So it's not the same. And when you have this charter system, right? The charter system is similar to revenue sharing in other sports, right? Where when you look at like the NFL, every team owner basically gets, I think it's like $400 million a year from the media rights deal. Huge amount of money. And that money from the media rights deal, that has to go back into the team. Essentially, that's what it is. When you hear about the salary cap and stuff like that, these team owners get this money. They've got to use that on the team. Now, when you look at all the other money that these owners are bringing in with ticket sales and merchandise and everything, they're absolute cash cows. It's insane the amount of money that these teams are making in the NFL. NASCAR, not so much, right? When Jeff Gordon comes out and says, dude, Hendrick Motorsports ain't been profitable for a decade, that's a problem. That's a real problem. Like we just talked about a few minutes ago, like I just mentioned, where are you going to cut costs? And unless NASCAR is going to raise the floor in terms of the purse and what these teams get, these teams are never going to be profitable. Now, if we look at this from both sides, okay, because I want to make this fair. Let's look at the NASCAR's point of view. NASCAR doesn't want these charters to become franchises. They don't want them to become permanent. Now, why is that? Well, it would give the teams a seat at the table. Now, Keith, what do you think? Should the teams be given? Should this be made permanent? What's your view on it?
I think if I'm gonna put myself in here, I'm gonna if I'm a NASCAR team owner, say I own two cars, I feel like if I'm a charter owner, I deserve a seat at the table. Um, I would like to see it like NFL, where there's profit sharing. I mean, it don't matter if you're, say, the Dallas Cowboys or the Cleveland Browns. Everything should be divvied up evenly, and I don't care if you're the best team in NASCAR or the worst team in NASCAR. You deserve a seat at the table. Why? Because you're here every Sunday.
Yes.
You are bringing NASCAR equipment, whether it be a car, fans, merchandise, whatever, to a racetrack every weekend, and you're traveling across the country every weekend. And
Yes.
I feel like if and I don't care if you're Hendrick Motorsports, Spire, They all deserve a seat at the table. They all deserve to have a say in all this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
do I think Spire should get the same amount of money as Hendrick? No. But if that's what's going to help bring a competitiveness to the table, to help these Spire teams, to help Front Row, to help Rick Ware, then that's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, this new car, oh, it's supposed to help the lower budget teams. When has it helped it? How has it helped it? How has it helped them? Yes, we've seen Michael McDowell win a few races in this new car, but outside of that, how's it helped them? I ain't seen nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them run inside the top 10 very not very often, but sometimes, most of the time, you can almost bank on a McDowell running in the top 10 or a Todd Gilliland running in the top 10 every so often. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I think if there was something in place to help these guys with this new agreement, it would help bring the competitiveness up a little bit with these smaller funded teams, and then maybe it would bring more attention to the TVs. Like everybody'd be like, "Oh my God, look at Front Row, look at Spire, look at Rick Ware. They're finally not a laughing stock of NASCAR." Will it happen? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it at all. NASCAR don't want these teams to turn into franchises when I think they should. These teams should be treated like franchises.
Yeah. And if you look at the quote unquote parody, right? Because that, and I hate parody. I do. I don't like it. But true parody. This is what people don't understand. It drives me nuts. Let me rephrase what I said about hating parody. I hate parody the way that people think of it. Parody, true parody, if you look at the NFL, true parody means equality of opportunity. Okay? What is that? That means when you have a horrible year, the next season, just like we got coming up here in a couple of weeks, you get to draft first. You get to pick the best players first. That is the opportunity that you get to make your team better. All right. Then it's up to your coaching staff, your player, everything else to play. And then we see in the NFL, there's a lot, usually we have a couple of really good teams. We have a bunch of teams in the middle, and then we have some teams on the bottom. If you look at the historical numbers over the last 15, 20 years, you're going to see the same teams at the bottom that are always at the bottom. And if you look, you'll see consistency in ownership, problems, issues, all those things like that. All right. NASCAR, you can't have that kind of parity in NASCAR. You can't, because essentially there's no way. What are they going to do, right? If you finish at the bottom of the points, what, next year you're going to get to draft the best aerodynamicist, right? So there's no, you're going to draft, what are they going to do? They're going to draft drivers every year? No, you can't do that. There's no way of doing that. So you can't create the parity that NASCAR wants, okay? Or at least what they want to try to achieve, like other sports. You can't do that in NASCAR. And so what we have now is we don't just have this equality of opportunity. We essentially have what is basically everything's just equal. And because of that, the racing has gotten so hard, it's so tight, it's so expensive. These teams are spending just as much now, if not more, than they ever have. And you can adjust it for inflation and everything else, and it'll still be right at the top. And they want a bigger piece of the pie because of this. All right? They want a bigger piece of the pie. And that's what you're going to have to do. If you're going to create parity, right, the way that we've got it in NASCAR now, you've got to raise the floor for these teams. They've got to make more money. Any well-run organization that is successful should make a profit. Period. It does not, that's it. End of story. You cannot look at the revenue splits and tell me that those are right. Keith, do you know what the revenue splits are right now in NASCAR for the current media deal? It's insane.
It's got to be terrible.
The tracks get 65%. The tracks get 65%. NASCAR gets 10%. Now keep in mind, NASCAR also owns a bunch of tracks, so they get a big
If
chunk of
not
that.
all of them.
Yeah. Well, it's basically them and SMI,
Yeah.
Speedway Motors Incorporated, and then the teams get 25%. If you look at that based on like what that comes out to, okay? If you look at over the terms of the deal, all right, there's a article that was done, I think this was like a month ago or something like that. Tracks, the headline of it is NASCAR tracks get 5.5 billion. That's deceiving. That's not in a year. That's over the life of the revenue split, okay? But if you stick with the current negotiations, the TV revenue breakdown, SMI will get over $2 billion over the life of the TV deal. If you factor in the ticket revenue and all that other stuff like that, every chartered entry gets an average of $5.9 million per year from NASCAR. NASCAR gets 10% of the revenue, which comes out to about $850 million. Plus, they get their track revenue that the ISC tracks produce. Chartered teams average 5.9 million. Folks, it was costing like $3 million in the 90s to run a full year in the Cup Series. You can't operate this way. And you can't introduce something like the charter system, the way that they've got it now, and then not want to continue with it. NASCAR is like, whoa, hey, we'll sign a 7-year deal for the length of this media rights deal. Well, then what's going to happen in 7 years? We got to go through this all over again. What do you want this to become? You want this to become like the NFL, Major League Baseball, where we've got the threats of labor strikes, holdouts, lockouts? Is that what we're looking for? Like, let's figure something out here. Let's just figure something out. Either NASCAR needs to, just get rid of it, get rid of the charter system, and basically go back to what it was. Hey, here's the deal. You build a car, you show up and you make the race, you will get a minimum of X, right? You finish last, you will make X amount of money. Either do that, go back to the way that it was, or lock these charters in. Stop this bullshit of we'll sign an extension, we'll go up for 7 more years, and then we'll visit the topic again. Because then what's going to happen in 7 years? What's going to happen in 7 years? And I've heard people out there, well, NASCAR wants to do that because what if the next revenue deal that they get, what if it's less money and now they have to give the teams more money and NASCAR can't afford it? You're telling me you can't write that into the paperwork? Give me a break. You can't write that into the contract? That is a bullshit lazy example. That is bull. Don't give me that. NASCAR doesn't have Uncle Harry's law firm working for him. You're telling me they can't figure that out? Give me a break. They can account for that in the future. So either do it or don't do it. But don't do these half-ass measures where you're going to end up with a situation like this every time the revenue of the media deal is going to come up where it's like, all right, now we got to come to a new charter agreement. Because you don't see in other sports where it's like, all right, we got to come up with a new ownership agreement every 7 years. No. You can't be doing that. Because eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be a real issue. And if NASCAR don't get this shit figured out here soon, I'm afraid we might see that this year. Now, I do think a deal will get done when it gets to the 11th hour and everybody's backs against the wall. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I will say this. For me personally, it's all or nothing. That's what I want to see. Either go all in with these charters, make them franchises, move on with it, or don't. Because this crap is exhausting. And you don't have to be a mathematician to look at it and go, dude, the teams are kind of getting screwed. And last I checked, at least I know this is how it is for me when I go to the races. I'm sure it's probably this way for you too, Keith. When I go to the racetrack, I go to watch the drivers. I've never once, not ever in my life have I shown up to a speedway and just sat there and been like, man, this is incredible. All right, let's have some fun now. Keith, dirt track recap, man. Did you see the racing this last weekend? Please tell me you saw it. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about fun racing? Dirt is where it's at right now. I know that there are people upset that we have a split in the sprint car world. I just think it makes the racing that much better. I enjoyed the Outlaws at I-55. I enjoyed High Limit last weekend. It was just awesome to see, and I thought both of them put on great shows. And it's, you know what I would like to see? I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I would like to see, you know how they do the Posse versus the Outlaws? I would love to see, if High Limit's around for a while, a few years down the road, I would love to see a High Rollers versus the Outlaws, where they have a couple races a year at some neutral tracks, right? And they run against each other, and then, basically whoever does the best, whoever wins gets the bragging rights type of thing. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, that would remind me a lot of, remember when USAC used to do the Border Wars back in 2008, 2005-ish to 2008? That would be awesome. I think the split, and you see a lot of arguments about High Limit, World of Outlaws, and each series kind of rubs it in the other series' face. Like when a High Limit sprint car racer goes and wins an outlaw race, the first thing you see on social media is High Limit posting, High Limit, a high roller got another one. And I think it's great. I think it's great for sprint car racing. You get two really good series, and I know people are knocking the Outlaws about having 8 or 9 full-time drivers, yada yada yada, but I think it is absolutely freaking spectacular. The racing that the Outlaws is putting on is actually really good. I think it
is
some of the best racing on both sides of the winged sprint car world. But I think the Outlaws, this is some of the better racing I've seen in a very long time out in the Outlaws. Now, the High Limit stuff, I think, has been freaking phenomenal. The race this past weekend at Red Dirt Raceway was some of the best wing sprint car racing I've seen in a very long time.
Yes, it was.
Very long time, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Yep, me too. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If we look back last weekend, we had the Outlaws. So to go a week before that, the Outlaws were at US 36 and then Arrowhead on the 5th and the 6th. Gravel got the win at 36. Sheldon got the win at Arrowhead. Last weekend, Outlaws were at I-55. Gravel won night 1. Shots won night 2, which was really cool to see. I'm one of the people, I love it when Donnie Schatz wins right now. I'm at like nostalgia, with him, where anytime he wins, it's just like, yes. It was kind of like back in the day when Earnhardt Sr. would win a race. You were just like, oh man, or Rusty Wallace or Bill Elliott. It was like one of the older guys would win a race. You're like, oh man, that's awesome. And right now, Donnie Schatz is not only been winning races, he is battling for the championship with David Gravel. Gravel's got a 48-point lead over him. If you look at the top five are within 100 points. It's still early in the season, but they've been shots in that. They've looked really, really good this year. This year they went back to, I've mentioned this before, they went back to the J&J chassis. Obviously, they also had another year with the tire, which I think has made a difference as well. And they've looked really good. So, yeah, hats off to them because it was some really good racing. And then on the other series, the Kubota High Limit series, Corey Day went back-to-back. Freaking kid is incredible, dude. He's 18, man. He hasn't graduated high school yet. He graduates high school this year. And he just put it on him. He's only that, mode. Dude, not only that, but so what was it? Was it Sunday night or Monday night that they were at RPM? because one of the races got moved because of weather. Can't remember if it was Sunday or Monday, but
Sunday.
Sunday. So he was coming, and then when the red flag came out, I was like, "Oh, dude, they're gonna get him." Keep in mind, Corey Day has some of the best crew chiefs in the world working on his car. They're incredible. I mean, obviously, Jason Myers, I talked about this before. That dude went back to back, won the World of Outlaws with, or during Donnie Schott's prime. I mean, dude knows his shit. Corey's dad, Ronnie Day, a very, very good sprint car driver. They've got another crew chief, too, who actually won the World of Outlaws championships a couple times. I can't remember his name, though. I always forget his name. It drives me nuts. But it's a stacked team. That car was incredible before the red flag comes out. They have an open red, come back, and he is bouncing it off the wall, makes it look easy, gets to the front, and is gone. Just incredible, this wasn't like a win that he stole or something he just kind of like fell into. Like, put it on him. Then Tuesday night. Huh?
Not to mention who he had to get around to win.
Well, that's the thing. He's having to pass studs. The high limit is, I have been thoroughly impressed with the drivers. You know what I mean? When you start looking at who these guys, your Macri, Brent Marks, Sweet, Tyler Courtney, Rico,
Kerry Madsen.
Like, dude, they've been very impressive, man. Very impressive. I've been thoroughly happy with the product I've been seeing.
And I'm sorry, this is probably gonna get me a lot of fucking hate, but this is the most stacked sprint car roster I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's stout, man.
Stacked.
It is stout.
Anybody in the top 10 in points could show up and win, and you wouldn't be surprised, like, at all.
Yeah, that's what I would. So if I had to compare the Outlaws and High Limit, that's where that I would compare it. If you think about a line of people, right? Whether you're at a grocery store or whatever, the Outlaws, I would consider the line to be narrow, but a little bit longer. Where High Limit, I would consider it to be the line to be shorter, but incredibly wide. And what I mean by that is the Outlaws, when I watch the races there, it seems incredibly top heavy, right? You've got Sheldon, Gio, the nerd assassin, Buddy Kofoid, right? Carson Macedo, David Gravel, Donnie Schatz, right? You've got 7 or 8 guys at the top, and they're really, really good. When I've been watching these high limit races, there's a dozen drivers where if one of them were to win, it wouldn't be a surprise. You would not be shocked by it. And the guys that have been battling for the wins, it's been very good racing. So that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most is they're basically 2 different products right now. Kyle Larson has been struggling, I guess you would say. I mean, for him, yeah. Look at Rico. Rico has not been running up front with High Limit. So, yeah, it's been really, really impressive. And then you've got Corey Day out there just smashing these guys and
coming out of nowhere and winning races.
And Tuesday night, running for Clausen Marshall, because if you remember, he's running the midweek money series. He's running the 14 BC, and he got the dice roll, the Durst dice roll, which, if you don't know, they changed it this year. So his starting position, which was 7th, now it's $7,000, and he'll split that with a member, a person from the crowd, if he wins the race.
And how bad
he went out and win it, which is awesome, right? So he got an extra $3,500, and a member from the stands got $3,500.
So before we get too far, you want to talk about fan engagement? How Joey Logano says NASCAR fans are spoiled. Do you see NASCAR doing anything like that?
No, I don't.
Absolutely not.
No.
And this is where I think dirt racing is far above cup racing when it comes to fan engagement, whether it be the Outlaws, USAC, High Limit. How badass is that, knowing that you could be just an ordinary fan in the stands, get the luck of the draw to do the Durst dice roll,
Mm-hmm.
and get to split money with a badass sprint car racer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
It just
that's just incredible.
yeah,
Incredible.
it increases not only your engagement, but your, you know,
The fandom.
your rooting interest. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Because,
So it's really cool. I really like the way that they did that. I thought
like,
that was genius.
if I'm just Joe Blow and I'm at a sprint car race and say I'm a fan of Corey Eliason, but I get to do the Durst dice roll and I paired up with Corey Day, you do the dice roll, he wins. Corey Day probably just earned himself a new fan.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, yeah, I'm gonna be rooting for the guy if he
I
just paid
mean,
me $3,500.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like, before we get too far, too, I want to throw this out here. So, how we're talking about the stacked fields and anybody inside the top 10 in points can win at high limit. Like, would you be surprised if Zeb Wise sitting in 10th in points would win a race? No.
No,
Now, hindsight 50/50, let's look at the Outlaws. Landon Crawley. Would you be surprised if he won a race? Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
be. Yes,
100%.
I would
Bill
be.
Rose, you'd be surprised. This is where I think High Limit's just killing it. Their driver roster is
It's really
stacked.
deep.
It's awesome.
It's really
It is
deep.
awesome because
Yeah.
you can sit and look at it and be like, oh, wouldn't be surprised if Tanner Thorson sitting 13th in points would win a race.
Yep. It's really deep, man. And when you look at the drivers that were just, for example, at Red Dirt on Tuesday, and keep in mind, Red Dirt was a Tuesday night money race. It was 20,000 to win. But your top 10, you had Corey Day, Tyler Courtney, Brent Marks, Parker Price Miller, Justin Peck, Kyle Larson, Rico Abreu, Brad Sweet, Casey Kane, and James McFadden. That was your top 10. That's stout. Even when you get further back, you've got Jacob Allen, Tanner Thorson, Anthony Macri, Chris Wyndham, Brady Bacon, Dominic Selzy. Just making the feature for a high limit show right now is pretty insane when you look at it. Now, I get it. There's nights like that with the Outlaws too. Don't get me wrong. But I think that the depth of high limit is really been surprising. I'm hoping they can keep that going. I really am because I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing right now, and from both. I'm not want to be bashing on the Outlaws. I've been really impressed with both series. To me the racing has been awesome. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I know, like I said, a lot of people have been upset that there's been this split, but to me, it just means more racing, and I love it because, dude, I will watch, you know, High Limit on Dirt Vision, or excuse me, High Limit on Flow Racing, and then I'll go back and the next day I get to watch the Outlaws on Dirt Vision. You know what I mean? Like I just watch the replay.
The
I
best
love
of
it.
both worlds.
It's just more racing for me. So yeah,
And if you're a sprint car fan, and I don't care if you're just strictly World of Outlaws or strictly High Limit, if you're just a sprint car fan in general, you gotta love this moment because the Outlaws tried doing this, and what'd we see? We seen that series just fucking crumble
yeah,
and turn into nothing. Now I think this is putting the Outlaws in a situation where they need to step it up just a little bit more. Because I mean, a conversation that was had last night about the Outlaws raising their purses because of high limit. I think that's great. I don't know why people
yes.
are bitching about the purses being raised. Well, this is why they did it. No, they did it because they had to.
They did it
It's
because
time to
they
move.
should. Yes.
Yes, it's time to move on from the times when you're racing in 2014, 2024. The purses shouldn't be like they were 30 years ago.
No, and they
And
just need to be higher anyways. You know what I mean?
and and
Regardless.
and this is where I pat everybody on the back from High Limit, taking everything into account and doing what needed to be done for not just High Limit, but for all dirt racers that show up. And I think the best thing at High Limit's killing it on is they're not handcuffing their drivers. They're allowed to go run where they want to run.
Yeah.
I think that is great.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Because it gives you the opportunity to
You're getting
make
more eyes on
money.
your guys.
Well, you may get more eyes on your guys, but you also have the opportunity to make more money. If I, for example, I was just talking to my buddy Kyle about this probably a week or two ago, and it was kind of a joke, but then we started actually discussing it. I had made the joke. I said, it's too bad that we've got responsibilities out here. I said, we could take your trailer. I said, we could take a car, go back east. I go, and we could race every day and make a living at it. And he was like, hell yeah, we could. And that's an absolute fact. You could. You live in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, right? You don't have to be on the high limit tour or the, outlaws to make a living. I mean, look at Macri, for example. Macri can run high limit, and then he can also go run with the Outlaws. He can go run just in Pennsylvania. Hell, you could just run in Pennsylvania and make a living, right? If you're good enough. So it gives these guys more flexibility, which is a good thing. Yes, there are times you got to obviously come out west and stuff like that. But for the most part, if you look at where high limits racing at, where they're located at, you can go run other shows and make money, and you're not going to be punished for it. And so that's what I think is a really good thing, because when you're dirt racing like that, unless you're one of the top teams where you are, being paid to drive, and there is a very small number of those drivers, you've got to be doing well and doing well consistently to be making money, and if you are hitting a rough patch, right? You're not a pay driver, you're hitting a rough patch and you're on the Outlaws, that's kind of sucks. You only have a handful of opportunities a year to maintain your status and go run other races. Where high limit, they're like, hey, go run wherever you want to. Just make sure you're here for our races. And I like that too. So I'm with you, man. So far, it's gone well. I have been thoroughly impressed with it and I have really enjoyed it. So it's been
Like,
fun.
like I think now is the best time to pull the true outlaw schedule. If you want to go
Oh,
chase
yeah.
money,
Mm-hmm.
now's the time to do it. You could go run damn near anywhere along the East Coast, whether it be high limit, outlaws, local shows in Pennsylvania, local shows in Ohio, and make a living doing it. Now's the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the best time to do it because you're not handcuffed to run a certain series. Now, if you're a full-time outlaw team, I'm sorry, but you're kind of screwing yourself.
Yeah, you are handcuffed. Yep.
You're majorly handcuffed, and
Yep.
that needs to change. I mean, it's time to get with the times.
Yeah. So, all right, moving
But I
on.
understand why they do it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Got to keep everybody locked down. So, moving on. USAC was at Lawrenceburg last weekend. This was what race was this, Keith?
This was the JO Memorial.
JO Memorial, that's right. Kevin Thomas Jr. got the win. Keith, what are your thoughts on Lawrenceburg with the changes to it?
Okay, honest review here. I love it.
I
think it's
liked it.
amazing.
I thought it was still really good.
Hats off to Shane McHenry and the McHenry family. They have sunk a bunch of time, a bunch of money into reconfiguring Lawrenceburg to what it is now. Um, I don't want to turn this into bashing the Rudisels that had the track before, but there was a lot of neglect on that racetrack that people aren't really wanting to talk about or to realize.
Mm-hmm.
So Shane McHenry took the banking back down to 14 degrees. That's what it was when that place first opened. When Shane took it over, it was sitting at 27 degrees. So that kind of tells you how much neglect was there. I think the reconfiguration of the racetrack is amazing. It's put on some really good shows, even though this is the second show. Now, I've seen a lot of complaining about the track surface. Guys, I want to say this, and listen to me. We had 7 inches of fucking rain
Yeah, that's gonna screw up
leading
any
up to
track.
this.
Yeah.
New dirt on the racetrack, 7 inches of rain. Most places would have probably canceled because behind the racetrack there are softball fields, baseball fields, a go-kart dirt track that was under fucking water, and yet Lawrenceburg still put it on. The track's gonna be rough because there were 7 inches of rain, new dirt, 2 races on it. Let's relax here. Let's be happy that they put the show on and enjoy the fact that Lawrenceburg is, I'm going to say, back. Lawrenceburg's back. This was probably one of the better races that I've seen at Lawrenceburg in a very long time. Last year, years past, the track would have been slicked off from top to bottom, and I've beat this to a dead horse that it's April. Racetrack should not be slicked off from top to bottom in April when it's not really that hot, not too humid, and you have weather helping you, rain, keeping the track surface tacky,
Mm-hmm.
not too slick though, and it's just black from top to bottom. Don't know why the Rudicels allowed it to happen. Don't really care now. They're in the past. Hats off to Shane McHenry and everybody putting in a bunch of effort into Lawrenceburg. I think that was one of the better races I've watched. I mean, the track had character. You could run the top, you can run the middle, you could run the bottom. You had to navigate through some very deep ruts, some very thick ruts, but I think the racing was good. I mean,
Yeah,
Kevin Thomas Jr. came, I'm going to say, out of nowhere
yeah,
and stole the show, and Seavey was just ripping the top. It was good. It was great.
yeah. It was good racing. CJ Leary was up there for a little bit. You had Kyle Cummins, Logan CV led, and then KTJ got around CV, and once he got the lead, he was pretty much gone. He passed CV. What was that? A restart lap, like I think it was 17 or 18 or something like that. It was after Baloo flipped. I think it was either the Baloo flip or the Grant flip. I can't remember which one, but he got the lead after that and didn't look back. So
No.
yeah, hats off to him. Good win there.
What what do you think as an outsider of the new reconfiguration? I want to hear
So
your opinion
I
on it.
I was I I was somewhat concerned because as an outsider, right, Lawrenceburg is one of those tracks where obviously it's not Eldora, but it's Eldora-esque in the sense that you've got this track, it's high banked, it's not a half mile, it's like a 3/8 mile, but it's super fast, right? It's this high banked, super fast track. And it's one of those tracks where you're like, man, when they're talking about the reconfig and knocking it down and all stuff like that, you're like, oh my God, what's that going to do to the racing? So I was kind of concerned about that because that was the thing with Lawrenceburg was like, dude, it's an on throttle, you're on the gas, letting it hang out. Like that's what Lawrenceburg was. That's what it still is. I was really impressed with it. I liked it. I can tell you right now. I mean, it's still you look at it right because you would be like, oh my God, they're gonna knock the banking down that much. It's still banked as hell. Like when you're looking, especially when you're looking at it from like an in-car camera, you're like, damn, that's a lot of banking. So it 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 was good, man. I liked it. I thought they did an awesome job with it. Yeah, the track was rough, but like you said, the rain was insane. We've seen this happen at all kinds of tracks. I mean, if you remember, what was it last year? Eldora. I mean, Eldora. They just shut one of the late model shows down. They're like, hey man, the track's too rough. It's too rutted up. That can happen. I mean, sometimes shit happens. It's dirt. So I I liked it, man. I thought it was a good show, and I'm with you. The fact that it was a good racing surface was a pleasant surprise because yes, you're right. There were races in the past there, and it wouldn't be July or August where the track looks as black as the parking lot, and you're like, "What the hell, dude? It's April. What's going on? Do you not own a water truck? I don't get it." So I thought they did a phenomenal job,
So
and the
I'm
racing
gonna
was really good.
I'm gonna put something in perspective on the whole track preparing at Lawrenceburg. Um, I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know how he would feel, but he raced modifieds at Lawrenceburg for many, many, many years at the old track, the new track, not at the current because he retired. When he makes a Facebook post last weekend or 2 weekends ago, the opening night of the new Lawrenceburg, when he makes a Facebook post that they're in intermission and I see stuff working on the track that I've not seen on the track in 15 years, that is big.
A
That
good
is
thing.
huge. Track track preparing is big. And when somebody and this man won track championships, won a lot of races. He could be in in the Hall of Fame if there was one for Lawrenceburg. When somebody to that stature comes out and says that, that is major. That is huge. And he's right. Like I seen even on the Flow broadcast, I seen things happening on the racetrack, whether it's getting it ready for the A main or just monitoring it. There was things on the racetrack that I haven't seen on the racetrack with the old promoters, which is eye opening, very eye opening. Now, if you want a perspective of a POV camera, I recommend going to Team S TV. He was there. He had cameras on Robert Blue's car and a couple others. Watch from the camera view of this past weekend's race there, and then go find one from last year. And
Yeah,
you will it's very surprising.
you'll see the difference. Yep. So, yeah, good job on their part. Good race, and it is nice to see USAC back in action. So,
And
uh,
and not to keep the train rolling on this subject, it is nice to see a promoter that genuinely cares about the racers and
oh
most
yeah,
importantly,
definitely,
fans.
definitely. So, USAC's got sprint cars. They're going to be done. They'll be back in action first weekend of May. They'll be at Eldora on the 3rd and the 4th. I want to. Is that Let's Race 2? I want to say
That
that's
is
Let's Race
Let's
2.
Race 2.
Yeah. So they'll be with the Outlaws, and then the midgets will finally get underway at the end of April, 26th and 27th. They'll be at Kokomo. So always a good thing to see USAC starting to pick back up. All right. Wrapping things up today, we're going to be doing our NASCAR Pick'em. So I was going to dive into some of the NASCAR betting odds, but it's Talladega. It's kind of pointless.
Put
To
some
be
money on Michael McDowell. You'll be
Well,
fine.
that's the thing. I mean, to be honest, if you're looking to bet, right, outright winners right now, Ryan Blaney's the favorite. He's plus 1100. That should tell you how big of a deal that is. Okay, that is the odds makers factoring in the chaos that is Talladega. All right, because if you look at a plus 1100, what does that mean? Okay, not from a payout standpoint, that's easy. That means if you bet $100, you win 1100. We've already talked about this. But those odds are also telling you something in terms of a probability, a percentage, right? So if you're a driver, right? So last week, I think going into Texas, Kyle Larson was plus 450. Plus 450 when you calculate it out and you base it on implied odds. That is the bet, the odds maker saying, hey, Kyle Larson has an 18% chance of winning the race this week. All right. That's what that's saying. When you had Denny Hamlin versus Ty Gibbs or whatever, and Denny Hamlin, in the matchup, and Denny Hamlin was minus 150. That is a 60%. That is them saying, hey, we've got a 60% probability that Denny Hamlin's going to finish ahead of Ty Gibbs. That's what those numbers are saying. When you have a plus 1100 and he's the favorite, that's an 8% chance. All right. Blaney's at 8%. You got Keselowski next, plus 1,200. Byron, 1,200. Hamlin, 1,400. Chase Elliott, 1,300. Logano, 1,200. Bubba Wallace, 1,600. There's really, this is one of those races where you just want to pick some super long odds if you're going to go for a winner. Stenhouse, plus 3,300. He's worth a shot because we know someone like him can win. Austin Dillon, plus 5,000. Right? That's another one. He's won at Talladega. Corey LaJoie would be another one, plus 5,000, right? We know that these guys can run decent at these tracks when you're looking at an outright winner. And then other than that, you're going to basically look at, you could do some top 10s, but unless you're getting a plus, at least plus 200, plus 250, I wouldn't mess with them. in terms of the top fives, top threes, and top tens. Corey LaJoy at plus 240, that's worth a shot. Michael McDowell plus 225, Austin Dillon plus 225, they'd be worth a shot, in the top 10 betting. Other than that, this is one of those weeks where it's so chaotic. There's such chaos. There's not a whole lot that you can factor into it. Yes, I've heard people out there that Fords have got, Kevin Harvick, they've got to win this week. I don't have to win. Will they win? I don't know. These tracks, it's so chaotic. It's so nuts. Like, who knows? I mean, who really knows? So that's pretty much it on the betting front because it's Talladega. Now, next week, we go to Dover and then Kansas, Darlington, Charlotte. Then we'll get into some races where the drivers can actually control their destiny. So that all being said, Keith and I, we made our bets 2 weeks ago, or our picks 2 weeks ago. For Martinsville, I had Blaney. Keith, you had Josh Berry. Blaney definitely did better than Josh Berry. I can't remember where Berry was. Berry was like 20th or something like that.
Yeah. Picker failed him twice.
Yeah. So not a good showing for him. Last week we didn't make our picks. So this week, you get to pick first since I picked since I won 2 weeks ago. So who do you have for Talladega?
Can I take the pace car? Is that allowed? I'm gonna shoot at the hip. I'm going I don't know where. Man, who do I want? I'm going to take Ty Gibbs. No, I don't want to take Ty Gibbs. Todd Gilliland.
Gilliland. All right. Not a bad one. All right. Well, I am going with Stenhouse. So it looks like we'll get to have our battle of the midfielders as Stenhouse and Gilliland at Talladega. I actually think that we are going to start to see not so much at Talladega, like I said, because it can get so crazy. There's that luck factor to it, that random factor to it. But I do think we're at a point now with these cars, and we've seen it this year. You look at the teams that are dominating. It's Gibbs and it's Hendrick. I think we're getting to that point where you're going to see these teams, these drivers that are good, right? The cream is really starting to rise. Yes, it's still incredibly tight. It's still hard to pass, all those things that we talked about. But we're seeing these better teams, move up to the top. And Hamlin, Larson, Byron, to me, those three are already a lock for the Final Four. Obviously, shit can happen and derail that. But they've separated themselves this year. And now we're just kind of waiting to see who else is going to join the party. I think after Talladega, we're going to have a really good sense of that going into the summer. Because once we get through the next 4 races, I think the next 4 races after Talladega, I think those 4 races, Dover, Kansas, Darlington, Charlotte, those are going to be what tells us, hey, watch out for these guys. Because I think that's where you'll see the separation. And whether that's a Chase Elliott, getting another win after his win at Texas, which was good to see. I know you're not a big fan of Chase. I know your problem is fans of Chase, which I don't disagree.
Like, I like Chase the racer.
Yeah.
I hate the fans of Chase because they're fucking obnoxious.
Yeah. So, will it be him? Will it be a Tyler Reddick, right? Can his pit crew finally get their stuff together? I mean, he's definitely had speed, or will it even be someone like a Brad Keselowski who's, been running up front and has been showing himself to be better, or Joey Logano who's come on here late. So it's going to be interesting to see. I used to love Talladega. Now I don't really care about him, which is, it's sad to say, but
it's
just
sad.
It's just kind of boring.
Yeah, like it It's a snooze fest
Yeah.
99% of the
I'm
time.
just hoping it's not going to be the fuel saving Olympics part 2 that we saw at Daytona. That's all I'm
Well,
hoping. So,
and that's what I was gonna say. It's sad that the only time the racing gets good up front or the whole field is when everybody starts fuel saving, and then everybody's like, man, this is the best super speedway racing we've seen in a very long time. Well, yeah, because they're running half throttle, and
yeah.
you got the guys that just don't care
Yeah.
sending it.
Going
And yeah, that's
170 miles an
exciting.
hour. They're
So
going
exciting.
faster in qualifying by themselves than they are in the draft. So, yeah. Hopefully that won't be the case again this week. But anyways,
That
you guys, that's
weird
going to do it.
decision it will be.
Yeah, that's going to do it for this week. Got to wrap things up here. I got to go take my son to school and then get to work. That will do it for this week. I've been talking about it. I finally got it set up behind me. Keep an eye out for it here this next week. I'm going to try to do the first one. I've been working on a ton of stuff. I haven't launched it all yet, but I'm going to be doing some midweek videos on the YouTube channel that are going to be just for the YouTube channel. I might pull out the audio later and make them like little podcast episodes, like separate episode type things here on the 3 Wide channel. But whether they're like race recaps or something like that, just they'll be quick 15-20 minute type deals. I'm going to be doing some of those, and then we've got the website that I'm close to finishing. Like I said earlier, I've just had so much going on. It's just been wild. But so keep an eye out for all that stuff because it is coming. That's my plan, is to have it all up and running by the time we get to summer. So keep an eye out for that. Those of you who continue to download, share, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, we really do appreciate it. And if you continue to do so, we'll be back here next week to do this all over again. So Keith, as always, my man, enjoy your weekend and
Thanks, will do. You
enjoy
do
the
the same.
racing. Yep. And all of you out there, have a great weekend. And until next time, take care.